Good evening. The Design Review Board 1 public meeting of December 15th, 2011 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker's cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You'll be called to present a case or speak on a specific item as desired. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Here. Current DRB agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at their discretion. Roll call. Mr. Ellis?
Present.
Mr. Insua?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Simonian?
Present.
And Mr. Yu is absent. Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on December 8, 2011. Oral communications. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not a part of this agenda? No? Do you have any cards by any chance? No? All right. Review calendar. This time we don't have any staff announcements, and we are down to our just regular agenda items. The first case is 1 PDR 2010-012A. It's located at 1410 Colina Drive.
Go ahead if you want to.
Thank you, Mr. Kiso, and good evening, Chair Palmer and board members. As Mr. Kiso stated, the first item for you is the only item for you tonight is located at 1410 Colina Drive, case number 1 PDR 2010-012-A. This is being submitted before you for the first time for final review. Just to give you a brief overview, the subject site received an approval for conditional use permit on March 4th, 2011. The conditional use permit was required because the proposed project is considered a brand new development. Therefore, in reviewing the lot width, the zoning code requires a minimum of 80 feet. The subject property only has a 25.5 foot wide lot width along Colina Drive. Therefore, a conditional use permit was required. The proposal is to demolish the existing 420 square foot residence and construct a new two-story, 2,787 square foot single-family residence and an attached two-car, 509 square foot garage on a lot that is 10,374 square feet. The construction of the proposed residence will also result in the grading of 881 cubic yards of earth, which includes both cut and fill. The lot also features a 40.7% average current slope. This slope does not require any discretionary approval, such as a CUP. The subject property is located in the Verdugo Woodlands West, which is considered one of our woodlands neighborhood. As you can see, this subject site is unique in that you have lots that are located north of the subject property, particularly along Hillside Drive, that are pretty much uniform in the shape and even similar in the lot sizes. However, the lots that are located along Colina Drive, which ends at a cul-de-sac, are generally unique in its own way, whether it be in the lot shape, lot size, or the slope, or the lot width. As such, the site planning of these properties are different from the properties located along Hillside Drive and beyond that. And because of these differences, the subject parcel is located on a higher elevation than the two adjoining lots immediately north to the subject property. And also it affected how the subject property is sited on the subject parcel. For example, the front setback is 108 feet away from the front property line, while code requires only 15 feet in this zone. And the side and rear setback are 14 feet over, on one side 14 feet away, while other side is 10 and 15 feet away from, 28 feet away from the property line. So generally, the setback meets or exceeds the minimum required by the zoning code. In regards to the mass and scale of the proposed home, the ground floor will accommodate all living areas and the two-car garage, while the second floor will accommodate 3 bedrooms and all the bathrooms. The north-facing and east-facing facade will be stepped back from the first floor. The rear south-facing elevation will be built into the hillside and will not be readily visible, as is the west elevation. In this case, the most visible facade is the north elevation, where the 2 full stories will be seen, particularly to the neighbors located at 1508 Hillside Drive and 1408 Colina Drive. The first floor is substantially articulated so that the living room, breakfast nook, and family room are set on different planes. Additional care has been given to the roof line and roof design. As depicted on the north elevation and the south elevation, the roof is broken up into smaller components with varying height, projection, and orientation. The building mass closest to the north property line features a one-story appearance, while the second floor is stepped back further into the hill. As presented, design consideration has been given to the new story home as to not create the appearance of a looming building to extent possible on the 2 adjoining lots to the north. And the proposed design before you tonight is also demonstrate a significant improvements over the design presented for the conditional use permit, which I spoke of earlier. And I have pinned them up behind you, which is located on your left-hand side. Regarding building design and detailing, the subject site is located in an established neighborhood consisting of residences designed in various architectural styles, including minimal traditional, modern, ranch, and Spanish colonial revival. The proposed project will be designed in an interpretation of the Spanish colonial revival style. This style, the Spanish colonial revival are often reflected in the building's shape, volume, the shape and size of the windows, and the cladding material such as 2-piece tile roof and smooth stucco exterior. Other features may include exposed rafter tails, corbels, and decorative vents. And you can see many of these features expressed on the proposed project. There will be 2-piece tiles. The shape window is a character-defining feature of the Spanish colonial revival. The smooth stucco as well as the exposed rafter tails around under all the overhangs. So generally, in reviewing the previous design that was submitted under the conditional use permit and the proposed design before you, staff felt confident that we could support this project. However, there are conditions that we have recommended in order to make the project better. And I would like to walk you through some of the drawings that are behind you. The site plan, as you can see, this is a very unique lot, including the lot shapes. The house, Colina, is to my right. The house is situated 108 feet away from the front property line. So the front portion of the property actually will be mostly consumed by the driveway. So the house will be situated where the lot is widest. And the two subject property that are visible from the subject property would be, this is 1508 Hillside, and then you have 1408 Colina Drive. And the first floor plan shows all living areas, all major living areas, such as the living room, family room, kitchen, and dining room. And the second floor features, accommodates all the bedrooms. And this drawing is a section through the subject property in the southwest direction. As you can see, there's a great difference between the house that is shown at 1508 Hillside Drive and the subject property. This is a one-story house, and the homeowner at 1508 Hillside Drive as well as 1408 Colina Drive have expressed major concerns about the privacy issue as a result of this project, and staff has reviewed privacy as determined by the zoning code and as reflected in your staff report, but the board may elaborate further on this issue. Generally, privacy is considered from all major living areas of the new project onto the adjoining developments, and of the major living areas in the existing development. So it's from major living areas to major living areas. So in this case, the bedrooms would not be included in that consideration. Now, staff visited the subject property on a number of occasions just to assess the relationship between this property. And also, I was fortunate enough to also visit the subject property at 1508 Hillside Drive and 1408 Colina Drive. I completely agree with the homeowners of those properties. You can definitely see the backyard of those properties, without a doubt. And you can see the windows and the sliding glass door. But I'm doubtful if you could see through the doors and the windows to see what takes place inside the house. So that I question whether that is possible from the standpoint of the subject property. And this drawing here shows two building footprints. The gray outline is a reflection of the current project, while the salmon or the coral color was the footprint of the building that was submitted with the conditional use permit. As part of the condition, the planning hearing officer wanted to see the building pushed back as far as possible from the north property line in order to buffer the two properties further, but more importantly also to save or mitigate the impact to the oak trees that are located on the neighbor's property. This is the landscape plan below it, and you have the colored landscape plan showing where the building's located, the driveway, as well as where it will be landscaped. And I also have photos of the subject property and the properties that will have the property owners, subject property or the property owners that have expressed privacy concerns. Here's photos of Colina Drive looking south. So my back was to Hillside Drive. And here's photos of views from the rear yard of 1508 Hillside Drive. Photos of view from the property of 1408 Colina Drive, and these photos show the view from Hillside Drive. So I'm standing sort of like near the corner on Hillside, looking at the property beyond the house that are facing Hillside. This is actually 1508 Hillside Drive.
Can you see the story post from that picture?
In the photo, it's hard to see, but if you're there, you could see the story post. Yeah. And then these sets of drawings reflect the design that were presented before the hearing officer during the conditional use permit hearing. And this is the project that's before you tonight. So as you can see, there are differences side by side of the changes that have resulted due to the conditions that were placed on the conditional use permit, to the overall design, to the mass and scale of the property, and the project has been refined further because of that. So overall, staff felt that it was a project that we could support, but the neighbors are here to express concerns. There's concerns beside privacy, concerns over the disturbance to the site, to the size of the house in relation to the sizes of other homes in the neighborhood, to the height, to even the style of the proposed project. So they're here tonight to hear your comments and your feedback on this project as you elaborate further and deliberate on the project further. Thank you.
These conditions, the 1 through 12, is that related to the new plans? The old plans?
To the conditions that are contained in the staff report pertain to the new project, the design review project.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. I'm going to open up public session. We have 15 speaker cards.
I also wanted to point out that the board members have received, as part of their packet, all of the correspondence that we had received prior to sending out the packet. There is additional correspondence that we received after that point that was placed on the dais, and I think Mr. Duong has something to add as well.
Thank you, Ms. Wright, for adding that. I would also like to draw your attention to the document in front of you that titled Chapter 30.11.040A. Those are pertinent to discretionary decisions that the design review must consider in deliberating on a project.
Okay. I'm going to call up one by one. You have 3 minutes to speak, and to expedite this, if somebody has made a comment already that you were going to make, just bring up some of the things other than that so that we don't spend the whole evening repeating.
Actually, the applicant should probably go first. They have 15 minutes, so.
I have them.
Okay.
Either the owner or the architect, Mr. Agobian. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Edward Hagobian. My address is 220 South Kenwood Street, Suite 210, Glendale, 91205. That's my address. Since the presentation by Radha Duong was complete, I don't see any reason to me to say more about this presentation of this project, unless you have questions from me. And I would like to request to add this time to my rebuttaling, because I see the neighbors are here. I heard their complaints during the conditional use permit, and I have done my work, very hard work, doing investigation about what they said. Maybe they have some more to say, and I would like to, as I said, add this time to my rebuttaling time so that I can, one by one, respond to their comments. Unless if you insist that I should speak now first.
Any questions for him? It says that there are 5 trees being removed. I don't see where those 5 trees are. Are there 5 trees being removed?
They have, rather has the package showing where those trees
Doesn't
are.
show on the package. That's why I'm asking the question.
We have a tree report, and we have an addendum for that.
I noticed one was not marked as being removed when I looked through it. The other one
I
seemed to
got
be marked.
3, so I'm just...
Oh, well, there's one I know that's here that's got to go.
We just need to make
Yeah.
sure what's being removed.
I noticed them on the older.
Is there an arborist report for the oak trees?
Yes, there has been an arborist report, and there has been an approval by Anne Mary Sheet of the City of Glendale, anything that is removed.
Okay, and my other question is, what do you propose for the driveway, material-wise,
The material is interlocking concrete blocks.
for the entire length?
Yes.
Doesn't show that.
I think somewhere we have shown
Shows
that.
a section up by the house, but it doesn't say anything about
Well,
the
we
rest.
didn't show entire driveway, just simply we said this is what it is for the entire driveway.
Okay. Okay, I think it's the only questions I have.
You know, actually, I got one quick question, and maybe this is in the back corner of your plans here, that's a retaining wall with a set of steps up to it?
Yes.
And it seems to be it's zero, it's right on the property line? Or a foot or so off the property line? Is
I
that?
didn't understand your question.
I'm wondering, it's situated, it seems to be right on the property line, and I was kind of the question I guess I had, is that looking to staff maybe here to,
Rather.
rather?
Yes, if I may answer that question, retaining walls are allowed to be located along property lines, but depending on the condition of the lot and where the house is sited and where the wall is located, there's various height requirements. For example, in this situation, because it's an uphill lot and most of the retaining walls are located behind a house and concealed from the street, the zoning code allows that wall up to 15 feet in height. Other walls that are located within the first 5 feet of the interior property line may only be 3 feet high in height. So depending on the conditions where the
Gotcha.
wall is located.
Thank you.
One more. Are you proposing to relocate that fence on the south boundary? The fence is about 10 feet.
There is a fence that is not in a very good condition. Yes, we will replace that.
And put that on the property line?
Yes.
One more question?
My questions in general, and I know the retaining walls vary in height, but in average, what is the height of this retaining wall on
That
average?
retaining wall cannot be higher than 5 feet max. So it gradually goes down and lower towards the street. The zoning code allowed to have 5 foot high retaining wall exposed. And that is maximum 5. In the present time, the existing condition that I have the photos, that retaining wall is more than 5 feet.
But as you propose it, it's 5 feet.
Yes.
And what about this wall, Mr. Agopian? How high is this?
I have this picture of the existing condition.
And what you're proposing on this side, how much?
That's a shallow wall just to support the grade of the driveway.
So you had to guess.
2 feet or 1, 2, 3 feet, not more than that.
Okay, and then this wall?
That wall in maximum is 12 feet high, gradually goes down, going from left to right. Becomes very low, like 4 to 5 feet.
Okay. I think that's all questions. Thank you. I have Armin Hagobian.
So can I have that extra time during the remodeling time? Because I see a
Good.
lot of
Maybe so.
neighbors complaining again. I want to hear what are the new
I
complaints.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Armin Hagobian.
Armin Hagobian, I'd like to relinquish my time in the end for rebuttal requests. Thank you.
Okay. Andrew Awada. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Andrew Waida. I'm the owner. I live in Studio City at 4204 Colfax Avenue. I work in Glendale. I've worked in Glendale for 22 years. And when I purchased this property, I purchased it to build a house so I can live in it and raise a family. And what I wanted to do is build a house that's adequate with today's standards. 3-bedroom, that's moderate, not too big, not too small. During the conditional use permit, I expected the neighbors to come and compliment me on what I'm doing. One is for improving the neighborhood by putting this beautiful house that's conforming with the neighborhood, that increases the value of the neighborhood as well, and that put people to work. Instead, I was shocked to see all these complaints. Complaints from neighbors from the south and neighbors from the north. Neighbors from the south calling it a white elephant, a monster, calling it that it's going to create a lot of traffic, cannot park on the street, while that same neighbor has converted his garage into an illegal living space, and he parks on the street. The neighbor on the north, which I somewhat sympathize with, because There used to be a small house which is still looking down at her property. We figured we can remedy the problem and mitigate it by putting a fence, putting vegetation to buff this, knowing that we all live in the city and it's impossible to have complete privacy. Almost every other house, somehow, someway, has a little peekaboo on the other property. The only way to remedy this is to live outside the city and have acres of land. Other than this, I'd like to say something about Mrs. Myrna Stanley, who is the president of the association, which lives approximately a mile away. She comes and criticizes the project and calls it a big house and it's supposed to be a single story, while she lives in a 3,000 square feet, 2-story square box and parks on the street. And also she was speaking on behalf of the association, which in my opinion is wrong, because I have a dozen letters from neighbors that live in the Verdugo Woodlands that I do not know, but they sent me letters completely approving the project and looking forward for this project. So she cannot speak on behalf of everyone, only her own opinion. Besides this, I'm going to say 2 more words quickly. I changed the design 3 times to comply with staff so that we can work it out. Originally, I started with a modern contemporary, felt like not compatible with the neighborhood. We went into a Spanish and we redesigned it to push it back, made it a little bit smaller to please everyone, from neighbors to staff. And some neighbors said that I purchased the lot and they didn't have a chance to purchase it. The lot was on the market for over 200 days. Any of the immediate neighbors had ample of opportunities to buy it, but it seems to me some of them wanted an extension of a backyard that's free. I don't know if that's relevant or not, but those are my feelings. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Dong?
My name's Calvin Dong. I live at 1502 Hillside Drive. Appreciate the Design Review Board's thoughtful deliberation and patience in hearing our side on this issue. Our presence at this meeting attests to our commitment to preserve what I believe is the ambiance and the beauty of the Verdugo Woodlands neighborhood that I have been fortunate to live in since 1987. We are not willing to allow this project to move forward as currently proposed and trust that you would agree that modifications must be made by the owner and his architect with their plans. I'm relatively new to this process, but when I read the documents and saw the words conditional use permit, my interpretation of that is that these conditions are expected to be complied with, that they are not merely guidelines that can be sort of met. So if I've misunderstood what a CUP document is intended to spell out, I would appreciate the Design Review Board's clarification on that point. Several observations that I wish to express are that the scale of the proposed residence by square footage exceeds the size stipulated by the CUP. In the CUP, it says 2,000 square feet. Although the architect and the owner have noted the modifications to the plans, it's still 2,800 square feet, and that is not 2,000 square feet. Contrary to what Mr. Duong has said, I live right next door to 1508, and I believe that the proposed building of that home unreasonably impacts my privacy. Those bedrooms have a line of sight to my family room and my outdoor living space, as well as several bedrooms. But if the bedrooms don't count in terms of privacy, so be it. Also, the proposed grading, I've already seen the elimination of several beautiful oak trees, which apparently were approved by the city, but it appears that the proposed grading will call for the removal of additional multi-trunk oak trees and other indigenous plants and trees that have graced the natural hillside beauty in that area for decades. Thank you very much.
Thank you. James Nutting.
First of all, I want to thank you all for this
name
public
and
service.
address.
I'm James Nutting. I live at 1428 Colina Drive. I very much appreciate this public service that you do, and I love Glendale, and I love my neighborhood, and I'm glad that you do this work to protect it and keep it a great place to live. My wife and I were active in the conditional use permit process. Seeing the original plans, we had concerns that the size was not consistent with the neighborhood. We had concerns about construction, about traffic, about the privacy of the neighbors. We felt like the process worked well. The resulting permit addressed almost point by point the concerns that the neighbors had. We saw no need to appeal the permit. In my opinion, it adequately describes what sort of reasonable structure can be built on the property. So I'm really here just to say I do hope the board considers the spirit and the letter of the permit itself as something that needs to be conformed to. I'm not an expert in architecture or design, but I do know that you can build a beautiful home in the neighborhood at less than 2,000 feet that embraces the hillside rather than seeks to excavate it. And so I hope you will consider my comments. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Myrna Stanley.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. Excuse my voice, and staff. My name is Myrna Stanley. I'm president of Verdugo Woodlands Homeowners Association. I'm not sick. I just have a respiratory thing. To protect the appeal process, may I ask that each one of you, before you begin your deliberations, if you'll state whether you have seen the project site from the backyards of the Shahjanians' home on Hillside, as well as from the Foote and Shamus residents on Colina Drive. I would appreciate that. I know you need no reminder that because the project meets code at height and lot coverage and cut and fill, that doesn't equate to compatibility. This house, as designed, overpowers that very, very limited building pad. As you've heard from some of the neighbors, this is a wonderful neighborhood that Mr. Iwata will be moving into. And I'm sorry he's taking the wrong impression from them, but they just want to protect their neighborhood. This house, I'll tell you what that amazes me, is a letter that you received from Ed Shamdas, whose house would be impacted immensely by this project as designed. He has no design background. He has no planning background, architectural, engineering. And he has studied that lot, obviously. He lives right, he looks at it every day. And he knows that a contemporary home would be more amenable to that site. It would be closer to the ground. It would be low slung. And it would, hopefully, it would be 2,000 square feet per the condition of the CUP. Sometimes, I know Mr. Iwata wants bedrooms and he wants a family room, but sometimes you can't have everything you want. If you're to preserve that hillside, which over the decades has become a wildlife corridor, I have to tell you, you have to reduce the square footage and you have to lower that roof line. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Madam Chair, if you'll remind them to state that for the appeal process if there is one. Thank you.
Okay. Dennis Geyer.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Geyer. I live at 1306 San Luis Rey Drive in the Woodlands. And I must tell you, I am really, really disappointed to be here tonight. I really thought that with the downturn in the economy, that the speculators and those architects that choose to work with them would have changed their mind. Apparently they haven't. I went to the project site today and was in the backyard of these people. And I've been coming to the DRB for probably 10 years now. And this is the most egregious project I have seen yet. If you haven't been there, before you make a decision, you have got to go. If that was my property that they were going to build next to, I really don't know what I would do. I would probably leave Glendale. This is a terrible project. Now, that's my opinion because I was there. If you have, they always make pretty designs. They don't show exactly what's going on. It looks so wonderful in the pictures. Go there. You won't believe what you will see. It's supposed to be a 2,000 square foot or less project. One of the things that the architects always do here is the negotiation pattern. Let's ask for 3,500 feet. And then when we bring it down a little bit, everybody will be happy and they'll approve it. This is exactly what's going on here. You wanted 2,000 feet or less, so they take off 400 square feet and say, now they'll give it to us because we're negotiating. Don't negotiate. I think in this particular case, common sense should rule. Go there, and common sense will not allow you to approve this project. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I apologize if I pronounced this wrong. Saro Shahishian?
Shahanian.
Sorry.
Good evening. This is Saro Shahanian. I live in 1508 Hillside Drive. I'm so excited because when I came in United States in 1983, I bought the house in 1360 in Elm Avenue. Then the building was 2-bedroom, and the basement was 7.5 feet. I bring some architect. He make a plan to just raise up that ceiling 2 feet high and raise the top bedroom up and put one more extra room because I got one new baby to come. And my next door neighbor, she got the pool there. She was 58 years old. There was only one 4x4 window there. We came in. She came in city and opened the claim, and the design review board doesn't allow me because she said when I swimming there, you're gonna watch from your bedroom. Only one window. Now, I lose that house because of that situation. I couldn't take care of that because I just turned down before the city gave me the okay. We didn't know that. I mean, they're not gonna give me the okay. Then I lose that house. Then after 20 years, I work very hard. I'm very hardworking man. Everybody knows in Hillside. I bought this house 4 years ago. It's a beautiful house. We're enjoying there. But the day, that land, this gentleman came and buy, and this gentleman came to me and said, oh, we're going to build a house here only with 2 bathroom window is going to show, it's going to look in your house. Then after a month, 2 months, when he brought that plan to us, everything look at on my house except that 2 window from the bathroom. Anyway, I just want to say, just a minute or 30 seconds, you just look that picture we brought here. You just imagine you living there, you with your husband or you with your wife and children, and you have to close all the curtain. Nobody can see from outside in your house. And from family room, from living room, from dining room, from my kids' bedroom, from backyard, from the pool, you can use it because if that building, I'm not against he building the house there. That's his. But that's. I'm sorry, I have to say because.
Try to wrap it up a little.
Yeah, this is my life. I worked very hard for this. I bought this house almost $1 million, almost $1 million. Now it's gonna come down. The price is gonna come down. Nobody, if I sell this house, nobody can buy it because all my privacy and my family privacy is gone. It's gone. You have to. You came there. You saw. I wish you've been there and see what's going on there. It's gonna be a small prison for my family. My daughter, my son. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you very much.
And also, but the last thing, he brought 7, 8, 10 letter. I don't know where he brought this letter from. North Verdugo, La Cañada.
We have all the letters and all the addresses. It's okay.
They don't live there. They don't know how it's gonna be, that building over there.
Thank you.
I wish you called in your country and they send some other letter to you, bring it here.
Mrs. I can't pronounce it. Jakahi?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I've only recently was able to pronounce my last name.
You just got married? Did you just get married?
No.
About 20 years ago.
My wife is still struggling with my last name.
I'm sure. It gets easier after you practice.
After a beer.
I don't
Good
know.
evening.
How do you pronounce it?
Shahjahanian.
That's easy.
It's easy after you say it 10 times. This is Elizabeth Shahjahanian, and I'm one of the owners at 1508 Hillside Drive. The current design of the above of the subject property violates many of the conditions reflected in the decision by the hearing officer at the CUP hearing. We collectively as neighbors have raised our concerns during the conditional use permit hearing held in January of this year. Upon receipt of the decision by the hearing officer, we naturally relied heavily on said decision, particularly condition of approval number 3, stating that the scale of the proposed residence must be reduced in size consistent with those homes in the neighborhood that are less than 2,000 square feet. Upon receipt of the notice of the hearing currently scheduled for today, we were appalled to find out that the majority of the CUP conditions were being violated. A 2878 square feet design clearly far exceeds the square footage limitation placed by the hearing officer. The current design, as my husband stated, will create an undue hardship for my family in a way that we will not only will not be able to enjoy our backyard, our swimming pool, we will not even be able to watch television in our family room, we will have no privacy in our bedrooms, and we will not be able to entertain any guests in our living, dining room area. Our 2 next-door neighbors likewise will have no privacy in their homes. We will lose total enjoyment of our property. Mr. Duong stated earlier that he is doubtful that anybody could see our major living areas from the current site. But anybody, like my husband stated, anybody who visited the site from our property, and I know 2 of the members did, and I had sent letters urging, begging the majority of the members or all of them to visit the site, anybody who sees the site will know what I'm talking about. The architect stated that we made some complaints. He used the word complaint very casually, that we made complaints during the CUP hearing. These are legitimate concerns. These are not just complaints. These are legitimate concerns that we have. The conditions that are stated in the CUP are accurate representation of what can reasonably be built on 1410 Colina Drive property. We respectfully request and strongly urge that this board reject the current plan as it does not conform to the conditions stated by the hearing officer at CUP. At the end, again, I want to stress on the fact for those of you who took your time and visited the construction site from inside our property and my two next-door neighbors' property, I believe you realized that our concerns speak for itself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Donald Foote.
Hello, my name is Donald Foote. I also go by Jack Foote, and I live at 1408 Colina Drive, which is right in front of where the proposed house is to be built. We appreciate, again, your patience in hearing our sides of the issues. We are here as individuals to speak our mind, and while Myrna has really helped us a great deal in organizing us, and since we haven't gone through this process before, we've appreciated that. You know, how big her house is and where she parks is not relevant. She's just supported us. I want to just clarify that real quick. When you look at the two designs, they're basically the same. The new one is about 100 square feet smaller, very modest, as she mentioned earlier, as far as trying to negotiate the whole thing. The house, their major areas of their home look directly into our homes. I mean, if he wants a big house with that space, then he's going to have to find a big lot. And like he said, a lot of those lots are only available in more rural areas, but that's just the way that things have gone. That house was posted over Christmas, and it was sold. I mean, we came back from Christmas on vacation, and it was gone. I mean, it may have been listed for 200 days, as he said. I mean, if you check the record, but it wasn't posted up as a sign for 200 days. That's 6 months, and it wasn't like that. The challenge for the architect, of course, is to build a house that's basically going to fit behind other houses. You know, houses have a minimum lot width requirement so they can face the street and to protect that privacy. Living rooms and other Karaman areas of most homes face the street, and the bedrooms and backyards have privacy by being adjacent to other homes. The windows are generally smaller, and that also helps the privacy. If you consider the homes in our streets, there's a lot of variations in the way they sit on the lot, and they kind of fit together like the pieces of a puzzle, each one protecting the house, the privacy of the other homes. And in the meetings that we've had to discuss our plans, we've noted that we don't see into each other's homes. This design at 1410 needs to be for a house that faces in another direction, and a modern style or some other style might help facilitate that. Something that will at least look like they're trying to minimize that impact. This house, you know, looks right into our home, as I said. The design looks like the architect is actually trying to emphasize their view of our backyard as opposed to, you know, kind of face it in a way where it would not do that. And they've, even in the new design, they've added this large window that's not there, which is right looking onto our property. So saying that they're trying not to, impact our privacy is outrageous. Rather, stated that, told one of the neighbors that the house was okay because it didn't seem to be 2,800 square feet, you know, like 3,200 square feet incorporating the garage. The problem is that the CUP required that it seem like it was more like 2,000 square feet, and the size of the other homes are about 2,000 square feet, except, you know, there are some larger homes, but there are much larger lots, and if you look at the house-lot ratio, it's much smaller than that. As neighbors, we want it to seem like the 420 square foot house, including the garage that it's replacing. The staff report talks about the Spanish Colonial Revival house, and my roommate, my partner here, Ed, will have some photographs of other Spanish Colonial Revival houses in the neighborhood that are built on flat lots and face the street, and this is not in that situation. So basically, we need a design that's created with the CUP restrictions in mind that actually addresses those, and this is simply a mild modification that has not really embraced what it needed to be in order to meet those requirements. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Ed Shamdas?
Hello, good evening. I have some pictures for board members who don't have a chance to come out and look at the property. So I will be glad you guys could take a look at it while I speak. Those pictures are taken from...
Your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Ed Shamdas. I live in 1408 Colina Drive. I lived there for 23 years. So I know the area pretty well.
So you're on the corner? Just down?
Yes.
Just down, okay.
Yeah, I'm just down. Okay. The parcel land of 1410 is an odd little property that is squeezed behind 4 properties. It is not an easy piece of land to develop, given the existing cabin is only 420 square feet, and it was the remainder of a larger piece of land that was parceled out for development. The limitation for anyone who would seek to build a house there would be drafting. The previous owner could tell you about it because she went bankrupt trying. Her plan was to simply replace the existing cabin with similar structure. And then when the land was going to foreclosure, we, the owner of 1408, put an offer, but we are only the backup offer because the current owner bought the land during Christmas holiday at an incredible bargain of less than $100,000. When the owner and the architect presented the plan with the CUP, the project was not approved as presented. In fact, there are definite restrictions placed on the development. I'm going to read the condition. The applicant shall reduce the scale of the residence to a size smaller to the majority of the existing residents in the neighborhood that are a total of 2,000 square feet. So the house right now is not 10% over, not 20, but is almost 40% over the limit. I have here a little map showing the property and all the neighbors that is suggesting that they should scale down the property.
Running out of time here.
Okay. I would, you guys reconsider it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Corinne Nutting?
Mrs. Palmer, there's a tree park there.
My name is Corinne Nutting. I live on 1428 Colina Drive. I've lived there for about 16 years. I came to the original CUP meeting to voice our concerns. The main objection I have, and I'm just quite frankly perplexed, is why condition number 3, doesn't have to be met. Why the new plans are, again, about the same size as what we discussed. I mean, my husband mentioned, as many other neighbors had mentioned, we thought when we went to the CUP, we addressed our concerns, and we were pleased. Wow, this process works. They listened to our concerns, they addressed it, and I think our neighbors, especially we, were perfectly amenable to a 2,000 square foot home. And when we saw this decision come out, I don't know why we have the CUP process if people don't have to follow it. Okay, but putting aside that this isn't my area, I just really want you to consider an alternate view of whether this house fits in our neighborhood. I've read in the staff report several times that, the homes are in between 1,400 to 2,500 square feet. But Colina Drive itself, all the homes back up to the hillside. And there are and actually I have this little spreadsheet that I created. I looked at all the homes that were the square footage and the lot size. With the exception of the 2,400 square foot home, most of our homes are like 18 to 2,000 square feet, including my own. I have a 2,100 square foot home that's 3 bedrooms. And I really ask you to consider, just when you're looking at this, I believe that with the staff report, when they're giving you false comparables, I think this is more realistic, or at least to please consider this. Because I think Colina is sort of a special street because everything backs up to the hillside. Other hillside properties the back of their street is Wabasso. So I think the topography is just different. So I'm just asking you to please consider that one point. And I know that, I don't know, I admit this is not my area. I'm an insurance company actuary. But it seems to me that a very nice 2,000 square foot home with 3 bedrooms could be built. And without infringing on people's privacies, without cutting into the hillside, and with all the concomitant issues I don't want to re-raise again that we raised during the CUP hearing. And the last thing I wanted to mention was my husband and I spent a good deal of time putting together our thoughts, articulating in the letter to the Design Review Board that did not get into the packet. I hope you will consider that
We got the
review because I was unable to get hold of the planner in trying to get that into the package. And the last thing I want to mention is that by approving a home at this size, I'm afraid it's going to beget other projects of this size. when, we love the Verdugo Woodlands. That's why we moved in there. And I can appreciate that they have tried to make some plan changes. But from my point of view, it just looks like they rearranged, the square footage and the footprint haven't really changed. It looks like they sort of rearranged the deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean, that's at least my view.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ella S. You can pronounce your name again, please.
Good evening. My name is Ella Shahjahanian. I'm a resident at 1508 Hillside Drive, the adjacent property on the north side of the proposed building area. I'm the baby that my dad mentioned in his speech. I'm here to voice my grave concerns about the building of this home on 1410 Colina Drive. The mass and scale of this proposed home is so great and uncomplimentary to surrounding homes that it greatly damages both their worth and privacy. Also, according to the design plan of this home, all of the windows to the rooms that are most used in it serve as eyes to my backyard, living room, dining room, den, and the bedrooms of myself and my brother. I will not be able to open the curtains in my room, utilize my pool area, or even watch television in peace because I feel like every time I'm near a window, I'm going to be watched. I initially liked the property and location of my home because of the beauty and privacy of the backyard. However, both of these aspects are being not infringed but completely destroyed because of this proposed project. Since the land has been bought, my blinds have been closed every day because different people come into the 1410 Colina property, and I feel uncomfortable having my windows open. And I guess since the bedrooms at this point don't count, my blinds will always be closed. On several occasions this past summer, while using my pool area, construction workers have been walking around the Colina property, and I have gone inside, not being able to enjoy my own pool. And this is before construction even takes place and before people begin to live in the home, which would otherwise be a watchtower overlooking my house, which at this point is becoming a prison. For Mr. Hagopian, this is another project, and for the owner, this is another form of potential profit. But for me, this is the destruction of the privacy of my home, which I will have once and once only. And the comfort of having what is completely private of a backyard is now being threatened by a potential, business. Lastly, I want to address the aspect of this project that hurts me to my core. Both my mother and father have sacrificed themselves physically, emotionally for the past 20 years to provide my brother and myself with a comfortable life and a house that we can call our home. After living in a townhouse for 16 years, we moved into this house, and it gave me the utmost joy to see that my parents' dream has finally come true. And this project, however, has turned that dream into a complete nightmare as we fight to keep the privacy we so much deserve in the house that we worked so hard to obtain. This may be a typical business venture for some, but to me, this is all personal, as my family's livelihood and privacy is put into jeopardy. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron S.
Hello. Excuse me. My name is Aaron Shahjahanian, and I'm a resident at 1508 Hillside Drive. I was initially not at the CUP meeting. Back then, it was just an issue. I thought, okay, mom and dad will take care of it. But really, as neighbors kept coming to our house and we had meetings about this issue, I really just sort of grasped the magnitude of the effect that this project will have on my house. Mr. Awada said that some houses, everywhere, they peekaboo onto other houses, as if it's a little game. Well, this house at 1410 Colina Drive isn't peekabooing into my house. It's opening my door and looking at me. And it's just really hard to ignore something of that magnitude so close to your house. There have been many letters written by residents of the Verdugo Woodlands area that say that they're in complete support of the project. And they say that they have read all the conditions, and they've looked at the plans, the old ones and the new ones, and they see the difference, and they say that it's okay because it doesn't infringe on anyone's privacy. They really don't have a say in it because they don't live anywhere near the house. The closest resident that's in support of this building is a few hundred yards away from the proposed building area. A few hundred yards is nothing compared to 15 feet that separates my property and this proposed building home, this proposed construction. And many people, before have stated, they came up and said that you really can't understand the issue until you come to the home. And I know you don't like hearing, repeats, but I really think that it should be emphasized. Our backyard is really like Disneyland. You just have to come and you have to see it. And really, if you're not there, you really won't experience that. I know some of you have already come and seen the backyard and seen the effect that all these huge windows will have on our privacy. And it's really just infuriating. And I don't understand why we're still at this point. I can't, explain how much it's going to affect us because really you just have to be there and see it. I can't. The house is going to look into my bedroom, my sister's bedroom, the den, living room, dining room, all these rooms, and it's not like we can see into their living areas because the house is several feet above our house. It's not like it's equal. We can see what they can see. They can just see us, and that's it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Connie Horton?
Good evening. My name is Connie Horton, and I live at 1474 Hillside Drive. And I'm going to give this picture to you because I think it will explain visually what I'm going to try to say in words.
Ms. Horton, be careful. There's a pen on the ground there, and we don't want you to...
Notice that. I meant to pick it up here.
I want you to slip.
Okay. Not being the best extemporaneous speaker in the world, I'm going to read, okay? I have been a resident of the Verdugo Woodlands for over 40 years, gentlemen. 40 years. I have seen changes, lovely changes, and some not so lovely. Most of them have been positive, as the residents attempt to keep the tranquil character of our area intact. The proposed construction on Colina Drive, it's not in accordance with that concept. The structure, while the rendering is very attractive, it's a lovely home, doesn't fit the lot. That's my big complaint. Okay. It's out of character. Another concern that hasn't been brought up tonight is what effect all the grading that is going to be necessary to complete this project, what effect that's going to have on the hill. I lived in my house during a rainstorm after we had just put up a retaining wall in the summer, and the hill fell down during that rainstorm. It's topsoil, ladies and gentlemen, topsoil, and it falls. It fell within 6 inches of my retaining wall. That's a danger. What is this grading going to have effect on the rest of the hill, as well as the removing of the vegetation that holds the soil in place? The picture, if I handed you, shows that some of the vegetation has already been removed. The amount that is on the show me the picture, what side? Okay, that side. It was like that all the way before they started clearing it. I couldn't even see the cabin that was there. They've already started removing it. It's just not right. Also, I'm going to miss the character of our Verdugo woodlands. Okay? Lastly, I've heard that the owner and the architect state that the proposed house does not have an impact on any of the homes north of Colina beyond the 1508 property. That was taken from my bedroom doorway. We built an addition onto our house many years ago, before we had a design review board, before we had the zoning, but we had neighbors. And I passed my plans on to my neighbors before I started construction because I cared. And I was hoping we'd have the same from this proposed project.
Thank you. Michael Superian?
Hi,
My name's Michael Saparian. I live at 1536 Hillside Drive. I probably own one of the bigger houses in the neighborhood. My house is 4,000 square feet. It sits on an 18,000 square foot lot, and I bought the house only because of its size. And when I go to every one of my windows, which I have a lot of windows, I can look out of them and not see one of my neighbor's windows. Not one. When Terry Lean built the house in 1998, he was asked to change certain things so it maintained the level of privacy that our neighborhood has always enjoyed. And then as I started looking around at my neighbors' homes, even the homes that are smaller and relatively close to each other, they're built in such a way where they can't look out one window and see in the other. And that's just the fact. My parking in my back, I can park 8 cars back there. Not once do I have to park on a street or impede the street or do anything like that. That's how the house was designed. It was designed in such a way that it would utilize the land. Now, this, I understand why they have a cabin on that property. It's long, it's narrow, and there's really only so much you can do with it. I applaud him for coming up with these designs. They're beautiful, in my opinion, but they don't fit with the neighborhood. It's not what the neighborhood was designed for. If you look at the homes out there, not one of them looks like that, not even mine. My house is a Cape Cod, kind of trying to get that modern look to it. My windows are all square, nothing round, nothing oval. I mean, everything is just kind of, fits the area. We didn't have to tear down any trees. He just kind of worked it into the topography that we have and that we had to deal with. And, I just look at this house in such a way that it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. And personally, the bigger he builds it, the more detrimental I think it's going to be to my property value. I'm in the real estate business. I'm a partner in a firm. We're a national firm. I understand real estate valuation. The bigger he builds it, he's not going to get that much more of a return on it. And that's going to mean he's going to get less per square foot. And when the appraiser comes in and values it, they're going to look at my house and drop the value on it per square foot. It doesn't fit. It doesn't go with what our neighborhood characteristics are all about. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the speaker cards we have. I'm now going to give Mr. Hagobian a chance to rebut.
Okay. We have this 300-foot radius neighbors' houses sizes. We have a house of 3,958 square foot. We have a house of 3,548 square foot. And then I would like to hand you size of the houses up to 500 square foot. We have a house very close to this property, 8,207 square foot. We have a house of 4,634 square foot. I will give the addresses: 1439 Colina Drive, not far from this property, 8,207 square foot. These are the numbers from the title company. 1468 Hillside Drive, 4,634 square foot. 1525.
Can't have cross communication.
1525 Wabasso Way, Glendale, 4,101 square foot. These are the 500-foot radius houses.
What are these?
I will explain that to you.
Okay.
There is a map also enclosed so you can see where those properties are related to.
Thank you.
This property.
So, though I'm a little confused, though, what is this survey?
That one is.
If I may explain, Board Member Alice, the chart that was included in your packet is a survey for homes located within 300 linear feet of the subject property, which is required. For the
Lineal or circumference?
lineal.
Okay, so in all directions.
Yes.
Okay.
On the
Well,
street.
Yeah, no,
there's multiple streets listed, so that's...
so it's not necessarily, it's just linear on the street. It's not 300 feet if there's another house down here and it's on a street.
Got it. It's not putting a
It's
circle.
not a, right.
So it's...
Well, then, I'm confused then, because if that's true, we got houses down here. We got ones on the next street behind it, apparently, that are in the survey. So I'm just trying to work out why he has a new survey and I have an old survey, and which one is actually should we be considering here?
We have a map that comes with that.
With this? The new one?
No,
You just
that
gave me
is
the
the
old one.
500-foot radius.
Okay.
We have a map. That's the map. This is
Right.
This is the map.
Well, that
This is
would.
the requirement by the city of Glendale.
Okay, so then that's what's required, 300 feet usually on a square lot. But
Correct.
we're not on a square lot here, we're on the hillside, so we take in streets around it, right? Okay.
Now, comments were made that these letters of support that you have it there, these are not the people living in that neighborhood. Maybe out of the 16 people that they have signed this letter, they are not living close, but the rest, they live in Verdugo Woodlands. But the thing is that when we had a conditional use permit, we had letters from Adams Hills objecting to this project. However, most of the people that they have signed those papers, they live in Hillside Drive, they live in Glorieta, Camillus, and they are local people there. The neighbor to the north of us, that I don't see him today here, and I know why he is not here. He has a house of 2,400 square feet right next to us. And we investigated, we found out that he has converted his garage to the living space. I don't blame him, because that house was built long time ago, and like most of the houses that were built in that neighborhood long time ago, they are small. They are not good for today's use. They don't function for today. That's why he had converted his garage into the living space, and the inspector of the neighborhood services inspected the property last Friday, and they have received a letter now. I have some pictures taken that I would like to show it to you, that people that come here and complain, they themselves...
Time left, so.
Well, I asked for more time because there is a lot of people that they
Can you
I
as
have to
much
be
time
able
as
to
we
respond
can.
this.
We have some other facts to present.
Our neighbor to the south, Shamdes, they have built their house with a variance of having a garage of 16 foot wide. And this is the letter of the city of Glendale. I heard the complaints last time with in the conditional use permit time that the Colina Drive is a narrow street and that there is a traffic there. Colina Drive and Hillside Drive, they both are 40 feet wide according to the maps. And Colina Drive serves only 12 houses, while the Hillside serves more than 100 houses. The only legitimate concerns that I see about these complaints is the neighbor to the north of us. And we suggested that we will put, first of all, if they can see us, if we can see them, they can see us. But we suggested that we will have a wall there to separate these two properties, so that in this kind of situation with this property, that it's an upslope lot, we have no choice to build a house looking into the dirt. We have to look different in the opposite direction to get the air and light, and there is no other choice of building a house in this kind of upslope situation. Last time in the hearing of the conditional use permit, the president of the Homes Association, which she has a 3,000 square foot house, and they parked the car.
We have to wrap this up, Mr. Hagobian.
Well, please give me more time, because if
Everybody
there's so
has an
many
equal
people
amount of
complaining,
time.
I have to be able to respond to their complaints.
But we understand where you're coming from.
Anyway,
Wanna do
the
any
major
facts?
issue here is the privacy issue, and even though that we are matching, we are surviving the codes of the city of Glendale, I sympathize with them, and we suggest to have a wall there to separate these two properties so that we can have a house there. Otherwise, we have to say that owner of this property, you cannot build a house here. And the size of the house, according to the
I'm
history
going to
of
have
the
to stop you. You're way over your limit.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Hagobian?
I'd like to give my time to
It's fine.
The history of the design review board and the requirements of the hillside design is that it's not the size of the house, it's the design of the house. I would like to have that show of the pictures that rather I brought. I would like to show you that people that are complaining that this house doesn't fit in that neighborhood, I want to know in what sense. The CD.
You mean the CD? Okay.
Yeah. In what sense? Such a beautiful design. Can you compare this to the boxes? Like Homeowners Association president has a house of a big box, 3-story high. What are the standards for hillside design? As I'm repeating again, I sympathize with the neighbor to the north. I understand their privacy issue. Let's concentrate on that. Let's find a solution for that so that even if we build a 1-story house here, again, we will be able to see their house. What's the difference? Our 2nd story is all bedroom. So let's be logic, let's be cooperative, let's design a house that will work. Either it's 2,000 square or 2,700, it doesn't make any difference. We will have the same number of the rooms facing the only side that we can get light. It's a hillside house. If you look towards this picture that you see there is the Colina Drive. Even though that there are 2 cars parked there, there is enough in between them to pass through. This is not an issue. Even though that this garage that you see there, there are trees in front of it in the distance of like about 15 feet that you cannot back up to the street.
We're going to have to stop. I'm going to have to close the public session. Thank you.
Was that 3 minutes?
The light went off.
The second time was 2 minutes. The first time was over 5.
We understand where you're coming from. Ready to just give a comment?
Yeah, if I could just clarify a couple of code sections, just to give you the context in which to make your decision. First, regarding the conditional use permit condition that is under question here. It says the applicant shall reduce the scale of the residence to a size similar to a majority of the existing residences in the neighborhood that are less than 2,000 square feet. So, I mean, obviously I want to point out the plain language does not say that it has to be less than 2,000 square feet. Secondly, the board doesn't have to decide whether this condition is being met. The zoning code gives that decision to the hearing officer who conducted the case. That's in Chapter 30.64 of the zoning code. It uses the term that they shall have continuing jurisdiction over the permit. And what that means, generally speaking, is for any variance, for any CUP, if it's granted in the future, either when plans are submitted or just down the road for a number of years, there inevitably will be changes. And this section of the code is meant to give the hearing officer a chance to say whether it substantially meets the project as approved. So this was reviewed by the hearing officer, who was satisfied that the project you have here met the intent of the condition that he imposed. However, it does not stop the board from making your own judgment on just neighborhood compatibility of the size, as you always do. But you don't really have to make a decision on that specific CUP condition, although you're free to address the exact same topic in your normal context. Secondly, regarding privacy, there are standards in the zoning code for how privacy is to be judged, and if I could just read that for you, please. Go ahead, Roger. You're making me nervous standing there. I'm reading from Chapter 30.47. It says that new development or remodeling that is more than 1 story in height in this zone shall continue to allow reasonable access to natural light for buildings and shall not unreasonably impact the privacy of buildings and outdoor spaces. Privacy shall be judged by the view from the living room, den, study, family room, great room, library, dining room, or balconies greater than 25 square feet of the new development into the buildings and backyard outdoor space of existing buildings. So really the key there is that it shall not unreasonably impact the privacy of buildings, and the code directs you to focus on the view not from every part of the new development, but from those areas that are most likely to where people spend most of their time.
And what were those again? Because I missed a few of them.
Well, it doesn't include bedrooms.
No. Just read it one more time.
Sure.
What areas again?
Of the new development, it's the view from the living room, den, study, family room, great room, library, dining room, or balconies greater than 25 square feet.
Did you also say something about backyard and stuff?
That is, no, you judge
Looking down
the view
upon.
from those rooms into the buildings and outdoor spaces of surrounding.
Can you read what that list is?
Okay. From those rooms of the new development into the buildings and backyard outdoor space of existing buildings.
Okay, so it includes outdoor space of adjacent neighborhoods.
It says shall not unreasonably
looking
impact.
into someone's bedroom or living room. It's also the general.
Yeah, I
looking down
guess I would just again emphasize, it says it shall not unreasonably impact it. It doesn't say there cannot be any impacts to privacy.
Right. Yeah.
Because we live in, obviously, somewhat urban area, and
Okay. All right, we're ready to start deliberation. Want to start, Mr. Ellis?
If I may encourage you to share any ex parte communication you may have had. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I live in a square house, 2 stories. I park in the street and under my driveway. I did have the privilege to visit the neighbors and the site on Sunday. I was in the houses of the neighbors on the north of that. I did not talk to anybody on Colina, so I get that out of the way first off. I guess there's a reason this lot was never really developed before or was left as it is, because unfortunately in previous days it should have been part of these other lots and we wouldn't be here tonight, but we are. Until you stand in the neighbors' backyards and look at how this building is situated, it's tough to see what an invasion into their yards it's going to be. I think the house on a different lot is the architecture is nice. I have no trouble with that design, but it doesn't belong in this lot. I think the only thing I could support would be a house somewhere around 2,000 square feet that is oriented toward the front of the lot, so it's not bearing down on these neighbors. The architect had made a comment about putting in a screen, growing some vegetation, putting up a fence. If you look here, here's the house, here's the neighbor. You're going to need a 15 or 20-foot fence to block that view, and so the front of the house, the new construction, will be looking at the backside of a 25-foot high fence, which is not available under the code anyway. In the way it's situated now, how it's set on the property and its size, it totally is invading these neighbors. And at this point, I could not support the project as it's designed. I'd be interested to hear what my colleagues have to say. I won't even get into finer details on the project until everybody else has said something.
Mr. Nsua?
Okay. Trying to find some. I'm going to be saying a few things, and when I started, I was going to try to be succinct. But I'm overwhelmed by our community. What a great place to live, Glendale. People care. People have been living here a long time. The quality of life, the physical structures, our parks, our trees, our different areas which are aesthetically and architecturally different is just as diverse as the people. and that's important. Often we struggle with diversity, but I believe that this forum, DRB, when you look at it the right way, is a good way to resolve, review, discuss, kick around the diversity of the physical structures in our community. I love Glendale. I practically grew up in Glendale, although I really grew up in Burbank, but when I wanted to move someplace after I got older and more mature and was able to buy a home, I saved my pennies, worked hard, as we all work hard for these homes in Glendale, and I bought my first house in the Verdugo Woodlands. I know the community, I know the Verdugo Woodlands really well. I was amazed by what the Verdugo Woodlands represents. The trees, the hills, the articulation of the roadways. It's special and should be protected. And the reason it should be protected is professional architects like the Hagopian Association, who I have deep respect and admiration for, does good work. And they also have been in the city of Glendale for a long time. And as a community, we all should, well, wouldn't know it necessarily, but architects that have been in this community for a long time, we pass by their good projects all the time, and you don't even know it because they're good projects. And the Hagopian firm has been around a long time, and they have a lot of projects, and I know them because I've been here a long time. I'm sorry I'm getting a little long-winded, but it's necessary for this kind of project. I can't remember the last time there has been such this welling up of emotion of a project. And it deserves it. You know, if I speak 5 minutes longer, it's okay. So this forum is good, and neighbors and homeowners and neighbors should continue to work together to have a vibrant community. And by the way, if these two kids are yours, you should be very proud. We should all have kids like that. I could tell as they were talking, I could see you guys welling up. We have a great community. Okay, having said that, I wrote a lot of notes and a lot of stuff and what neighbors were saying and stuff. And my general outlook on things is this. If I do something, whether it be design a home or just walk down the street, and if there's not a general outcry of what I'm doing, I think I'm behaving okay. There's generally acceptance of what's going on. But if there's a general outcry or something's going on, you have to look at what the issues are. We have a lot of people on this side in the community and a lot of emails who have a general impression of what's going on with this project. I think, and I'll just organize my thoughts. It's hard for a professional architect to want to satisfy the wants and needs of an owner, want to satisfy the professional integrity that we have, want to be able to design something on a site, plus the owner of what they want, and all those community wants and the city's want. It's hard. It's not easy. So it's not easy building in 2011. Okay. Item number 3, here's what I read. The applicant shall. We all have friends of ours who are attorneys. When they throw that word "shall" in, you don't have an option. You have to comply with it. It's a legal term, shall. The applicant shall reduce the size. Excuse me. Let me read it again. The applicant shall reduce the scale of the residence to a similar size, similar to the majority of the existing residences in the neighborhood that are 2,000 square feet. Shall. Pretty clear for me that the language here says you shall do something that's in generally conforming with the neighborhoods that are less than 2,000 square feet in the neighborhood. Others may argue, I'm not an attorney, but when I read the word shall, it's pretty direct. So my first thinking is that I would like to see a design that conforms in general square footages to 2,000 square feet. But as I was speaking with Rather this morning, when I was here at the city on my own projects, do not be mistaken that square footage alone does not reduce bulk and size and scale and mass. it's a combination of square footage and the aesthetics of the design of how it fits within the site. So just because you have a 2,000 square foot lot, if it's a big box shoot into a site, it's still going to be big and bulky. But 2,000 square feet is what I'm reading here. I know the Verdugo Woodlands well, and I have a pretty good sense of what the character of the homes are in that neighborhood. I went to the site. I drove by a couple days ago. When I got the emails, I drove by. I didn't have a lot of time. But I'm pretty smart, and I get a good sense of what's going, how things are. And just before I came here this evening, I walked up that street to look at the neighborhood at night. You see something in the daytime, you see it at night. So I was there a couple hours ago when it was dark, and I walked up the slippery driveway, and I took my time, got a sense of it. I believe that the square footage is an important contributor to designing a home that fits well in this neighborhood, in this site. But I also believe that the way that the bulk of the home, it's 2,000 square feet or so, plus a 500 square foot garage, which is not calculated, should be more aesthetically, more contemporary, more modern, whatever you want to call it, fitting better into this kind of narrow site that when you're looking at it from the adjacent neighbor and itself is not as vertically imposing. Here's one image over here, especially over here to your neighbor. I see this as a home that perhaps architecturally Spanish Revival may not be, in its design, the best architectural design for this site. This home did get a CUP that I believe should be followed closely, not exactly, but closely. One homeowner said that the project should sit on the site a little bit like a puzzle. That's an interesting analogy. I have a lot of respect for this architect. I have a lot of respect for our community. I have a lot of pride in what we do. But I believe that this physical site, the challenges that it has, not only its site, but its adjacent neighborhood and its surrounding, this home exceeds the square footage, the bulk and the mass, the architectural style, and probably should be explored a little bit more.
Okay. Mr. Simonian?
This is an interesting project because it's not that often that we get this many amount of people that come in. We used to get some challenging projects several years ago when the economy was a little hotter than it is today, and so there was a lot of activity. There were construction loans, there were speculation, there were people that were looking to expand their families and grow and so forth. So we had a lot of similar cases some years ago. And so we appreciate everyone coming out. We know everyone's busy. We know everyone has things to do. And when you take time out of your busy schedule to come out and voice your opinions, we value that. We cherish that. And as Mr. Insua pointed out, this is the forum to do it in. Our goals here at the Design Review Board are, if you really boil it down, are quite simple. We follow the city's design guidelines, and we try to encourage architecture that fit the guidelines of the specific areas. We try to create compatibility, so buildings are compatible with the surrounding area. And we try to minimize conflict between neighbors. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. That's the idea, is to try to solve that at this level. Ultimately, there's cases that fail or are redesigned and come back and are that much better off for the homeowner or the surrounding neighbors. It's a long process. It's a stressful process. Having gone through it myself personally, I could tell you it's a not a fun process to go through. So I understand what you're going through as an owner. It's very frustrating. You're spending money, you're spending time, you're spending efforts, and you feel as though everyone's against you. But ultimately, things do settle down, and if a project is meant to be built, if a project is correctly designed, and if the right compromises are made, things work themselves out with time. This site is an extremely challenging site. I mean, you have a downslope property overlooking several homes. You have homes downslope from you, and downslope, we're not talking about 60 feet, 80 feet, 100 feet, immediately downslope from you. So it's very challenging, and it's very difficult. A lot of effort has to go in to try to work this thing out where you minimize conflicts and try to have a design that's not appealed ultimately, and that's the goal. I could tell from the previous designs to the current design that a lot of work has been done. I mean, you could just tell a lot of effort has been spent with staff and probably the community and the architect, because the bulk has been reduced, although the plan probably has not changed all that much, but the elevation certainly has, and it's the roof lines are certainly more articulated and more broken up. The mass of the home is decreased a bit, and overall, some efforts have been made. And as I'm hearing some of my colleagues on this board, it seems as though there's some serious concerns. And so I'm not sure if this project is going to, what the outcome will be, but my guess is, from what I'm hearing, that there's some concerns on this board. In assessing the design and the direction, conformity and modesty in design, I think a mass and bulk will probably be the best solution in trying to achieve design for this project and this site. The CUP, the conditional use permit hearing, was held. The owner has a right to build on this property. The CUP was not denied. The conditional use permit stated conditions that, if met, the owner has an opportunity to build on this lot. And so the question, and I don't think anybody has raised it, and the concern isn't that nothing should get built. It's just what should get built, at what size, and how should it conform in order to satisfy the concerns. I would suggest that in order for us to provide some guidance, so you're able to remedy this matter, because I have a feeling that if this board were to approve it miraculously today, someone's going to appeal you from that side. I'm just sensing that. And so the idea is to provide some guidelines to the architect, the owner, staff, and so hopefully we'll be able to come up with a strategy here where it eliminates it from going to City Council, because they frankly have better things to do at City Council than deal with one home in an area, as you can imagine. So that's what we try to do. And so when we look at this site plan, and so the best way for me to, well, I guess I could have a discussion on this, even though this is not the site plan, but it certainly depicts it. The hill, this is higher than this. So we have homes in this area, and this is overlooking it, so we have a downslope property. And usually in these scenarios, it's quite a ways down slope that there's another house. But in this scenario, they're right here. So that's the issue. And the architect's bringing up some just logical points. Well, it's not like this is downsloping this way on Colina, and so you could just terrace the home this way, but it's looking this way. So it's very challenging. It's very difficult. And frankly, if the owner maybe knew all this from the get-go, he might have made different decisions. I don't know. But if this house, if we could consider it one story, that's more rectilinear, perhaps with the garage being more subterranean, and in such a scenario, maybe even a courtyard between this side and this side, where the house could get light and air from the courtyard as opposed to from the neighbors, is an opportunity, I think, that begs to be explored, at least at this level. I'm not sure if that's the right approach. I'm not sure if that will suffice your needs as an owner. I'm not sure if that will suffice the community's concerns. But it's a thought that I had as far as something to be considered here. Now, such a scenario would maybe require variance for the retaining walls because they're going to get taller because you're trying to create a driveway that actually leads to a subterranean area. So those retaining walls, such as here, might require some variances, I understand, but that's a lesser of both evils. I mean, that's not a problem. Those walls could be made so they're conforming. But again, if the garage, if we're looking at the section, if the garage is more down here, and instead of the house being raised like so, is lowered, and it's one story here, where the garage actually turns into a living space, I think that's an option that maybe could be considered. I'm not sure. But in short of that, I think whatever is discussed here, ultimately, I think the neighborhood is against it anyway. So what I think is the best approach for us is to give some guidance so there's a natural transition of what the architect could do to try to create a home where the homeowner deserves, and that's his right to build on this property, and there's a structure there already. And that's all I have to say at this point in time.
In that same line of thought, the owner spoke in the beginning stating that he wanted to do a contemporary home, and I think, I'm not sure why that wasn't explored anymore, but that may be what you're talking about, the way to go, more linear, lower, and just because there doesn't happen to be a contemporary house in the area does not mean that it can't be designed well. We have several areas in Glendale where we have houses that don't match the other houses, but they blend because they're of the terrain, location of the house. It can be compatible, and we can't have cross-conversation here. Anyway, I think that's something that should be explored because the new design, in my opinion, has lessened some of the bulk, but it's also created some extra verticality facing on the houses on the north side, and there appears to be the larger windows. So I think that needs to be explored, maybe moving the house around, maybe this particular style of house is not one that will fit on this very, very difficult lot. I appreciate the amount of time and effort that's gone into it, but it may not be the type of house that... And I'm also concerned about, we're removing 7 oak trees, 5 which are in good shape, and the more we remove those, the more open that... I realize it's in the report and been approved, but that is a concern of mine. I think that's all I can really comment on right now, and if it is redesigned into another style, I think there needs to be consideration for the landscaping for the entire lot, not just the house, because there's been nothing done for the first 100 feet. So I think that's the only comments I have at this point.
Chair Palmer, just to clarify, only 5 oak trees have been approved for removal.
And if I may further clarify,
You're correct.
the city's arborists, when they review an arborist report, they're not approving, per se, removal of oak trees. They may approve the report that it was done up to the professional standards. They may calculate an assessment for the replacement of those trees based on the size of the trees, but you could require that a certain tree be saved if you felt that it was reasonable and
And I couldn't
helpful to do so.
determine that right now, but I'm just saying, I couldn't determine that right now. I haven't read the report, I've just basically looked at it, but is it a concern
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, in another area of the city, on a conditional use permit, there was an arborist report, the arborist wrote a report reviewing the plans that the applicant had, which include removal of a number of trees. When staff person wrote the report and the hearing officer approved this particular CUP, we said, well, even though you want to remove one of these trees, and even though the arborist has established a value for it, it doesn't mean that it's been approved to remove it, and we actually want you to keep it because we think it's an important feature of the neighborhood. So you do have some flexibility.
Okay.
I just want to
Thank you.
clarify that it's not quote-unquote approval.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you have a comment?
I was going to suggest some conditions for a motion.
Let's start with that.
Consider a style more suitable to this hillside lot. Orient the structure away from the neighbors to the north, and somewhere around 2,000 square foot.
I think we also need to note that we cannot, just because there's been nothing built on this property at this time, that nobody's entitled to complete privacy. Just want to mitigate the amount of exposure.
Could you repeat? What about style?
Actually, I was adding her landscape there.
Okay.
I think rather. Did you catch me rather? You want to hear it?
Yes, consider a suitable style for the subject lot. Orient the building away from the neighbors to the north. And
somewhere around a 2,000
yes,
square foot.
Yes.
And then I guess your comment about the landscape plan certainly would be
Right, that it encompassed the entire
lot. The landscape plan for the entire lot.
Any other comments?
Is there any other? Then I'll make a motion with those conditions.
For a second?
I'll return for redesign.
May I
Yes,
ask
go
a
ahead.
question? In your deliberations, there was a recommendation by Board Member Simonian to lower the profile of the house. I'm just wondering if you wanted to include that as a consideration?
I think it would really help based on the site conditions, slope of the hill,
So consider lowering the profile of the house.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would think there is a design that would fit on this type of a sloping lot. Then odds are, if it fits the property, it would fit.
Just
You know,
falls
height.
into that.
Yeah, it kind of falls into it.
If I may, I'm going to read back what we've heard just to make sure we get it right. Consider a suitable style for the
More
subject
suitable.
lot.
More suitable
More
would be the
suitable
word, I think.
style for the More suitable style for the subject lot. Consider reducing the square footage to approximately 2,000 square feet. Is that right? And the landscape design should encompass the entire site. And then there's a condition, and let me read it back and ask you a question on it. Orient the structure away from the neighbors to the north. I'm wondering if you'd like that to be a consideration.
What exactly do you mean by
You know
that?
what?
It shouldn't be
Orient-
windows facing? Or
I'm sorry.
I think
we just tease that out a
called to
little bit more.
orient, I think we were talking about is orient the views away from the neighbors.
Orient the views
Yes.
of
Possible use of
the-
the courtyard, let's say.
orient the views from the house away from adjacent neighbors.
That doesn't mean 100%, it just means that
Okay, so would you rather say than minimize the views?
greatly minimize,
Sorry?
greatly minimize the views from the house towards,
I mean, exiting requirements, there's going to have to be some openings.
I said greatly minimize.
And then the last one, consider lowering the profile of the house design to better fit into the hillside.
And there was also the landscape.
The landscape design should encompass the entire property.
Do we have a second on that, then?
I can second it.
I'll give you 1 sec. You get 30 seconds.
We are trying to cooperate with the neighbors. Give us kind of condition that is workable. Just simply one-story building is not
No, we're-
possible to put in this
We're
property.
not necessarily asking for that, but you just
Lowering
have to
means that. There's a limitation. There are building codes that we have to have the retaining wall on the back in certain distance, and to hide that retaining wall, I will do my best for the next design to avoid the neighbor, not neighbor, but don't limit us in a way that is impossible for us to do.
I'm sure you can come up with it. Thank you. We had a second on that?
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Okay, so there was a motion by Mr. Ellis and a second by Mr. Simonian to have the project come back as a return for redesign with those comments and considerations. So this will be roll call. Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Mr. Yu is absent. Mr. Insua?
Yes.
And Chairperson Palmer?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, there's one set of minutes to approve, December 1st of this year.
We have a motion to approve them?
Who was, we were, was you the only one that was absent?
You was the only one, yeah.
Yeah.
We were all here.
I moved to approve them.
A second.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second.
First, second.
Third. Okay, a motion was made to approve the minutes of December 1st. This will be roll call. Mr. Simonian?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Palmer?
Yes.
I have a quick board comment. Would this be appropriate? You know, very quickly, and I mean, I hopefully this house will end up being one. One of the joys of being on design review, other than giving up my Thursday every so often with this fine group of people, is seeing projects that we've seen come through here completed. And the one that just caught my eye, in fact, driving over from my office to this afternoon, was the Disney Child Care Center on Flower.
Beautiful.
And I encourage anybody in the public who hasn't had an opportunity to go see the building. It was very, when we looked at the plans, I mean, it wasn't anything you'd see normally. It was packed earth for the walls, and you kind of wonder, what's it really going to look like? And boy, did they do a great job. So I really want to applaud Disney for that project, and also staff for their involvement in it. And it's definitely an improvement in that neighborhood.
Great.
We agree with you on that project, and thank you for your input, because we believe your input improved that project. I want to thank you all for your service this year. I also wanted to mention, if I didn't mention in your last meeting, that the City Council did approve the North Glendale Community Plan and the design guidelines for the comprehensive design guidelines for use citywide, as you had recommended. On December 6th, they also approved a new zoning height for Foothill Boulevard at 35 feet, and all of the other important general plan amendments, etc. As soon as we get the resolution and other editing pieces into the documents, you will be receiving color copies of those documents, because you will hopefully be using them so much you'll wear them out. I also want to wish you a fabulous holiday season, a happy new year, and to mention that your first meeting of the year will be January 12th.
Happy holidays.
12. At 5 o'clock, yes. Thank you very much.
I move to adjourn.
We're adjourned.